Good evening. Welcome to this Greer City Council meeting called and convened this evening, August the 10th, 2021. Having called the meeting to order, I'd like to ask Councilmember Judy Albert if she would to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and then offer an invocation for council. If you'll please stand.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for this day. We thank you for our many blessings that you've bestowed upon each of us and for the blessings that you've bestowed upon our city. I pray for healing in our nation, Lord, and I pray for your will to be done in whatever occurs. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Ms. Duncan, anyone to appear in public forum this evening?
No, sir.
With that, council, let's move to the minutes of the council meeting. In your packet this evening, you have the minutes from July the 27th, 2021. I'll entertain a motion that they be received.
So moved.
Second.
And a second. Any items of note for the clerk? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, this evening we have a presentation by Meridian, our provider for waste services, and they have come tonight to talk about some changes that I understand are going to be made in the near future. And so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council. I'll make this brief, but first of all, I want to thank everybody for letting us come up here and to meet and actually be in an open environment. I love this right now. It's good getting away from the Zooms. I want to do two things real quick. One, I want to kind of let everybody know who Meridian is, where we come from, and what we're about. And then two, I'm going to let Patrick, who is our area president, I'm Dave Labner. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Meridian Waste out of Charlotte, North Carolina. But I want to just talk about some of the changes and enhancements we're going to be able to provide the city over the next coming couple weeks. We are a southeastern-based company. One of our big mottos is we try to say we're only going to pick up garbage where the SEC and the ACC play football, and we're going to stick to that. We're in Missouri, but technically, I guess you got Mizzou there too. So
You going to Oklahoma now to pick up?
Well, we're currently in 7 states. Our corporate office is in Charlotte, North Carolina. And, we have some facilities relatively close to here in Knoxville, Augusta, Georgia. And we've actually just done another acquisition with Eco here in town. If you've seen the yellow containers and everything, and they do toilets, they do storage containers. So we really love this market with the growth. And we have the capabilities now to really just enhance what we can do for Greer, whether it's construction, and we can grow and we can build with you, and we have a lot more resources now, especially with, these are trying times with COVID and everything else, but we've got an abundance of resources that will help us get through some of these things and make sure we have the ample people to take care of the services and grow with a city like y'all as fast as possible. And we're honored to be here. Andy's been great. It's been a very good partnership for us coming through. And with that said, we wanted to talk about some changes we want to do with the routing, because currently we service 3 days a week with the city of Greer. And I've always been a big proponent of if we could be here every day, that way if something does happen, we're be able to be more responsive. But the way we're going to do this, we're going to be putting a little bit more equipment in here so we can anticipate and be ready for the growth, which is very important. But two, we're not going to change any of the service days in terms of or services. So everybody's still going to have the same garbage, recycling, and yard waste picked up on the same day. We're just going to be moving a couple of the routes to Thursday and Friday. And we're actually going to, like I said, we'll show you on the slide where we're going to be able to put some more equipment out there to handle the growth, limit the hours a little bit so we can get in and out a little bit quicker, because the philosophy I always had is out of sight, out of mind. That's good for everybody. We get it picked up. So with that, I'm going to let Patrick jump into the quick presentation so he can show you what we're going to do.
Yeah, as Dave mentioned, it's a pleasure being here. Thank you all for the opportunity to step in tonight and present the changes that we're going to be implementing inside the city of Greer for the waste collection and the schedule for waste collection. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of the changes that we will be implementing on the week of August 30th to September 3rd. So as Dave mentioned, we'll be rerouting from 3 days a week collection to 5 days per week collection. And as part of that, we will have residents that will experience service day changes. So we'll have residents that are having their service day moved to either Thursday or Friday. The number of residents that will be effective is approximately 4,500. There's some new construction neighborhoods that are affected. So as they grow over the course of this month, that number will be roughly 4,500 residents. And that's about 36% of the households in the city of Greer at this time. Now, what Meridian Waste will be doing is we have already initiated and gotten a postcard approved that will be sent out letting these residents know that their service day is going to be changed effective the week of August 30th. So those postcards will be arriving to the residents next week. And then as a second form of notification to over-communicate the changes that are occurring the week of August 30th, we will be executing cart hangers on their current service day. That's going to notify them whether they're moving to Thursday or Friday if a change is being made. If a resident is not being affected and they're staying on either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, they're not going to get a notification, but we will have the route structure posted online so they can reference that if they do have questions.
We're going to also, during that week, we're going to bring in some additional supervisors from other areas just to drive to the areas that are getting affected. Let's say if you were a Monday pickup and you're going to Thursday, we're going to put a flyer on that can to say, hey, we're just going to let you know that we'll be back Thursday is your service day. The thing that we found that's more successful than sending another truck in there and picking it up, because then everybody starts saying, what's going on? I got a postcard. Why is this truck coming through here? We just want to get somebody on there to put a flyer on the cart and say, hey, we'll be back Thursday. That will be your new service day for all your services.
And as part of the presentation, we wanted to post this. These are areas that are receiving service day changes. So we've got the listing that will be changing to Thursday, and then in the red font would be their current service day. And then also as a reference, we've listed the areas that will be changed to Friday collection services. So we posted that there for your reference. As a part of the reroute, with going from 3 days collection per week to 5 days per collection, there is a couple of holidays that will be affected for the remainder of 2021. So during the week of Labor Day, the routes were already going to be shifted from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. They will now be shifted to Tuesday through Saturday collection. And then Thanksgiving as a holiday will now be thrown into the loop with a 5-day collection. So residents that would usually get collected on Thursday will now be collected on Friday. And if they were collected on Friday, they'll be collected on Saturday. So that with the way the calendar falls this year, those are the only 2 holidays that will be affected for the remainder of 2021.
The good part is also with Thanksgiving and New Year's, with it falling on a weekend, there will be no disruption in service. And those are typically your 2 heaviest weeks of the year.
We've also posted as a part of our presentation just images of the front and back of the postcard we've already initiated and have been mailing to the residents. And then also at the very bottom there, you've got the front and back of the cart hanger that will be hung on the residents' carts the week before the reroute does take place. And as Dave mentioned, executing this reroute from 3 days a week to 5 days per week is going to allow us to put extra equipment and extra route coverage into the city of Greer to make our collections and also provide room for growth, future growth of the city. So currently right now, just for example here in these 2 charts, we've got 14 garbage collection routes over the course of Monday through Wednesday. Well, with going to Monday through Friday, we'll have 15. And we're also going to have additional coverage in recycle and in yard waste. And to wrap up the presentation tonight, we just wanted to put an overview map. So I've got a before map that's now displayed showing where you've had your Monday collections that are in red, Tuesday collections in green, and then Wednesday collections in yellow. And then here's what the new service map will look like with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday being displayed there in the colors on the presentation. But again, we thank you all for your time tonight. We appreciate everything that you allow us to do for the city of Greer.
Any questions?
Council, questions?
Would you be willing to share those slides with staff so that we could have?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, no problem.
The other thing too, why we enhanced that other route especially on the garbage side, is we saw this as the growth comes, we're not gonna have to come back in a year or a year and a half and say, hey, we gotta do another reroute. We've got it, we're very leveled out now, so we're anticipating the growth coming over the next couple of years. So all you're just gonna do is be able to push a little bit more onto those existing routes. So we're not gonna have to go back through a day change. But in my history, a 5-day work week, if we could be in here, it's just, it's better for both of us. If something comes up, we're here. We can get it taken care of. Where if we're not here Thursday and Friday and have our assets somewhere else, it's going to be a lot more timely to get in here to do something.
So at 4,500, that'll be changing. If that's 37%, we're over 13,000 collections now then, correct? Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, 12,564, something like
Yeah,
close.
so, not that I know what it looks like, but how much garbage are we getting rid of in the city on a weekly basis?
On a weekly basis, you're currently looking at about 240 to 255 tons. Right now, Monday through Wednesday, we average, depending on how heavy it might be that week, we average about 65 to 70 tons.
I can tell you this, though, from pre-COVID in the Southeast and even in South Carolina, we noticed you were averaging probably, I think it was about 43 to 44 pounds per home. When COVID hit, it's gone up to 50, in some markets in Florida, it's gone up to 57, 58. In this market, I think it's gone up to close to 52, 53. So you start doing an extra 8 pounds a home over, let's just say you got 600 homes. I mean, that's a lot more volume that's getting picked up. And obviously people are home. So we're building this thing also, and we've stretched this thing out and put these other trucks out there, anticipating that's not going to go away anytime soon. You know, when it does, great, but we want to make sure we're there in case something does come back down the pipe on the shutdowns or something with COVID.
Two things, on your garbage collection trucks, do y'all use, GPS markers? So if you pull up, if the truck comes to a home and there is, recyclables and yard debris, they hit that, so you know that truck, the vehicles that's got to come pick those up needs to come here? Or is that, y'all?
Not for those purposes. We have GPSs that are on the vehicles, but not to communicate between trucks. So each truck, each service, garbage, recycle, and yard waste, they all just run through the route. So you know, a recycle truck might not hit, yes, there's yard waste at this home. The trucks run the entire route every single day.
The other thing we're doing is we're going to be putting tablets in all these trucks too. So it basically, what it does, it just drops a breadcrumb trail for the drivers to go and see exactly where stuff is. And it tells them exactly how to run it, so they know to get, for the recycling truck to go after all the recycling stops, and the yard waste, they know where to run on that.
But it seems to me that the tonnage, it may back off a little bit, but I would suspect that it wouldn't, because you have so many people now working from home, and where that waste was disposed of commercially, now, you know, all the paperwork they have is being disposed of residentially. Is there any market for paper? I mean, you know, I understand that the recycling is driven by
You're talking
real recycling.
more on the curbside recycling component of it. We have seen some limited success in other markets on doing dual stream recycling, where you'll get 2 35-gallon carts, and maybe you put rigids in one and fibers in the other. You know, currently right now, your cardboard market has actually gone up a little bit. I mean, you're starting to get a little bit more money on that, but what's killing and dragging everybody down right now is single stream recycling. And you know, you're seeing left and right places are just, they're starting to disband. I mean, Clay County, Florida, it was a big contract I had back in my day. It was about 68,000 homes. It's the county south of Jacksonville. And they came out last week and said, one, they're having a hard time with drivers, but the processing cost for them on that recycling is about $85 to $90 a ton right now. It's almost double what it is for garbage. They disbanded the program. They said, until further notice.
So my question is this: if my theory is correct, then there's a lot of paper being generated. Is there a market for that paper that makes it economically feasible for you for us to tell our residents, hey, you know, this paper, we need to be recycling it, because when it goes to the landfill, we have the tipping charges.
For strict paper, yes, there is. Now, it's an education on how we do that. One thing we found kind of successful, what we've done in some municipalities, is we've done drop-off centers, where we'll put certain slits in there where they can't put other commingled materials in there, just in paper fibers. And then we can just run a commercial separate route and go take care of that. That has been the biggest success we have found, because what happens is, with the training and everything you want to do, if you start throwing a few cans in there or bottles, it just contaminates the entire load. So
I think
that's been our
I think the
success.
single stream's our biggest issue at this
It
point.
is.
It's not the value of what's going in there. It's that so much stuff is commingled in there. I mean, if you look at what people put in their recycling, it's obviously in some cases just what won't fit in the garbage can. I mean, you
The
know.
dual stream is almost at this point, in most places, is a break even. The problem we've run into initially when this thing hit like 2 years ago, everybody wanted to go to dual stream, but then all of a sudden all the residents started complaining, why do I have 3 garbage cans in my garage now? And that became a big issue. You know, you got your 96-gallon cart for your garbage, and you got 2 different ones for recycling, and in some cases, people would have it for yard waste. But that, you know, to answer your question, the 2 best theories I've seen so far are going into a dual stream where you hopefully can break even on it, or you can do drop-off centers, you know, where we would work with you all to find out good designated areas to do it, and we would provide the containers and go do that. And that way, you know, because I know you guys are paying a pretty hefty processing fee right now on the curbside.
Yeah, I like this parade idea. I was home Monday and garbage got picked up between 7 and 7:30. I had the blue card out that day. It got picked up about 10 o'clock, and about 4 o'clock the recycling got picked up. So you had 3 people run that same route the same day.
Now, what about the ones that just ride by the yard waste? The yard waste is out there, piles out there, and they just ride by.
Well, what we're working through right now, and I'll let Patrick talk a little bit on it with the postcards, what we're doing. We're working very closely with the administrative staff right now to make sure we're identifying these piles. And if it's too large for us, we're working with the city to go ahead and take care of this. And we're making sure we're training our people on what we do need to pick up.
Because what happens on a lot of, when people see that you're not gonna pick it up, and it starts out as a legal pile, but then people come by and say, well, I can dump right there because they're not picking up, so they start to throw stuff in there that you don't pick up. But when the homeowner put his stuff out there in the first place, it was a legal pile, but because it sat there so long, people just come by and just decided that was a.
Well, what we've done now is we've gotten a lot better we'll talk with the staff here, and we'll let them know where these piles are. And what happens is we'll sit there and say, okay, we can go back and get it this day, or they might say, hey, we can go ahead and grab some of this. So we're starting to communicate better, but we're making sure we tag it. We make sure after we tag it, we come into the office and we notify the city on what's going on so we can let the resident know. That was the biggest disconnect I saw when I got in here. We see it, but the communication never got to where it needed to go. But that's what we're working on now, because I don't know about you, but if somebody calls me, or, you know, a utility company calls me and says, hey, I screwed up, I was supposed to be out here today, something happened, I'll be back tomorrow or Thursday. Typically, I'm okay with that, as long as somebody communicates and lets me know.
Now, like the big bulk items, do they still have, because see, I didn't realize that if somebody puts a couch or something, large item out there, that you gotta call in and schedule.
Correct,
That
yeah.
pickup, and that's an education process that we need to make sure all the residents. 'Cause
We're
I
trying to do
didn't
the same
realize
thing
that-
with that also, like what you said with the yard waste. If we see that out there, and we don't see it on our route sheets, we're wanting to call that in also and say, hey, there's a big couch out here. Let's figure out how we want to handle this.
Because I don't think in our ordinance it says anything about having to call in for white goods or furniture or anything like that. So that's going to be, matter of fact, in my district, there is a chair that's been sitting there for ever. It's just going to disintegrate. So, anyway.
No, I think there's an opportunity for both Meridian and the city of Greer to partner on some education, because I think one of the biggest problems that we've got, I had a call this week from a guy over in Victor, and he said, he was fussing about him not picking up some stuff he'd put out beside the street, and I asked him a little bit about it, and he said, well, yeah, they're 12 to 14 feet long, and they're 6 inches across, and I've got them lined up all the way across the front of my house. And I said, well, you need to call a tree company and get that chipped, because we're not hauling that off. So it's an education process.
And we see a lot of things that we could do together on this. We've had some initial discussions, and things are changing. The way we operate now compared to what we did pre-COVID is night and day. The way work with our employees has changed night and day. And I don't see that changing. We're not going to anticipate it changing. That's just how we did this reroute. It said we anticipated that the volumes per home were going to stay the same and that they're not going to come back down.
Anything else, council? Thank you. We appreciate
Thank you for your time.
this evening. Mr. Merriman, you want to follow up that report?
Yes, sir. And mine will be very brief. Actually, just one thing I want to make council aware of is that election filing ends Monday, the 16th at noon. So that's it. That's all I had for you guys tonight, unless there's anything specific you have for me.
All right. Administrator is available for questions via email or in person, either one, at your convenience and his convenience. Let's move to appointments of boards and commissions. We have an opening on the Board of Zoning Appeals in District 2. Any action in regards to that opening, Mr. Griffin?
I got the name left in the card.
All
So
right.
we'll just give it to Tammy.
All right.
Name it next week.
Good deal. For the Election Commission, you should have before you a biographical sketch from Miss Terry Grady. Miss Grady lives over on Highland Avenue. I think many of you may know her from her work at various banks here. Miss Grady and I worked together for nearly 20 years at Greer State Bank. And she is a member of our community, still works part-time up at Whitey's Auction, has agreed to fill that seat on the Election Commission. I will offer Miss Grady as for election to the Election Commission, and need a second.
Second.
Any questions in regards to her service? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Earwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Let's move to items of old business. The second reading of these items, we'll start with second and final reading of ordinance number 32-2021. This is an ordinance to amend the City of Greer zoning code of ordinance by adding to Article 4 definitions and Article 5 zoning district regulations to incorporate indoor amusement and entertainment services within the City of Greer. Mr. McMahon joins us for that discussion. The floor is yours, sir.
Yes, sir. There is no new information on this. I know Mr. Airwood had brought up one of the businesses. I did want to let him know that that property is on C3, on Memorial Drive Extension, down in that medical park that used to be a medical park. But that's all that I have. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So
I was going to propose an amendment, but I guess I was too late on the draw. Well, I would like to amend this to where these types of businesses are allowed in C2 as well. So I'm just not clear why we would only have it in C1 and C3.
What was that? What business?
This text change, these amusement type businesses that we are saying that they are allowed in C1 and C3, and we've excluded C2. And I do not see the reasoning behind why you exempt it from C2. You go from in my opinion, C1 is a very small area. And then you go to C3, which is generally highway commercial, which is generally a lot more expensive as far as rent or for business to locate there. C2, with some of these businesses like arcade, and I know we're not having a lot of demand for that, but to me, that would be perfect for C2.
Mr. McMahon, are there zoning issues that are problematic, or what brought to our staff's attention that C2 might need to be excluded in this regard?
Yes, sir. We just felt C2 was more of our neighborhood commercial. We are working on the UDO, and we want to create a neighborhood commercial kind of district. I think when we do that, we would feel comfortable with certain uses, but right now where C2 is, we have C2 scattered throughout neighborhoods, kind of more in Greer Mill, Sunnyside, Victor Mill, some over off of Poinsett and Arlington area. So we just didn't feel this type of business would be appropriate that could impact that neighborhood. So that's the reason we felt that way.
And I think I think the total opposite. If you've got C2 zoning in Sunnyside or Greer Mill, and somebody wants to put a roller skating rink, that would be the place you'd want to put it, wouldn't you? Instead of out on the highway where you know, mom and dad's got to load the kids in the car and drive them where they can walk to the place in their neighborhood.
What's a typical C2 business in those neighborhoods?
So the majority of those were zone C2 back in the day, back in '79. They were just kind of grandfathered in. There are a couple of them that are kind of auto-oriented businesses that were just there. I'm trying to think. The one over off of Pelham used to be a laundromat. Across the street from that, I believe it was a roofing company back in the day. So that individual parcel there is C2, but everything around it is residential. So that's kind of where in staff's thought process is you have individual lots that are in the middle of neighborhoods that just because it's zone C2, this would be allowed by right, and it might not be appropriate in that neighborhood, but it doesn't give us the tools to do that. I think if it wanted to be in C2, I think a special exception would be a good option. That way, if you do have one of those that's surrounded by residential, that just to make sure it's a good fit for the area.
Is part of the thinking just like a roller skating rink or something like that in the middle of the neighborhood, the potential volume of people in and out, coming and going kind of thing? Is that part of the?
I think you would have to deal with the traffic and the roads handle it. If it's a smaller site, but you're able to do, a small skating rink, you may have people just parking up and down the street. You may have a lot of traffic coming into that neighborhood where the local residents are complaining about that traffic.
I can see that. I understand what Jay is saying, but I can see that perhaps.
I also believe that the roller skating rink, that's going to require a large building. So that's going to be dictated by the availability of land. But for instance, let's use, and this may not be C2, but you've got Back Home Cafe. Been there forever and a day in Greer Mill. Victor Mill had several locations in it that were commercial type businesses that serviced the neighborhood. And I don't think that, I don't like the idea of trying to make neighborhoods so sterile. I think that's when we get into the issues that we've tried to combat. Is instead of having walkability, now we've got to drive.
I don't think it's an unreasonable argument. I mean, one that immediately comes to my mind is not in Greer, but the old Handlebar. It was down on Stone Avenue. It was right in the middle of a residential neighborhood. Now, it caused a fair amount of consternation in terms of parking and sound and that sort of thing. That had to be dealt with over time. But I'm not unsure that Mr. McMahon's recommendation of special exception might not be a good bridge for us until we get to the UDO, at which point in time we could make any final adjustments that we wanted to.
And that may be how we address it, because another UDO is being looked at. Well, is this business, does it benefit the neighborhood? And for instance, he brought up an example of the building on Pelham Street that used to be used as a laundromat. Well, now it's a flower shop, and it's definitely in residential, but the residents in that neighborhood, they walk to it. They, according to the business owner, they're doing great. So.
And you're saying that flower shop is C2?
The flower shop is either C2 or OD. I cannot remember off the top of my head, but it's one of those two. It is a commercial use.
Well, yeah, so you use that as an example. I mean, I could definitely see a pool and billiard room there, and I could see
coin-operated amusement arcades. I think it'd be, and kind of the way it's being used right now, is like, isn't it florist? Is that what you said?
They sell more live plants, yeah.
Okay. So see, I see what you're saying about the special exception. If somebody came to you and said, hey, we got this really cool venue, it's zone C2, it doesn't fit nicely under your umbrella, and you're saying we're gonna be addressing that with the UDO, but you're saying for now, if they wanted to use it for purposes like this, they just have to get a special exception? Is that what you're saying?
I think if it were to be added, that would be staff's recommendation for C2, is to have it as a special exception. That way, if you have something that's in the center of, Victor Mill, that is around nothing but mill houses, but was, originally back in '79, a convenience store where it might not be appropriate for commercial now, that would give us the option to take it to that board, make the case for or against, and let the board make that decision.
The convenience stores that are in neighborhoods now, in the future, what zoning would they be?
So I think what we're looking at with the UDO is creating that neighborhood commercial where we would define convenience stores good, maybe limit square footage so you can't have a 20,000 square foot strip mall in the middle of a neighborhood, but also kind of limit some of those uses where you can have a restaurant, but maybe not have a drive-through. So you don't have all that drive-through traffic coming and blocking the streets, but you can have a nice cafe, sandwich shop, sit-down restaurant. So I think we're kind of looking for something that's going to be a neighborhood commercial use, and then we'll have more commercial uses defined separately.
Because I'd hate to, you got Cannon's Restaurant, been there forever and a day, that's.
Yeah. Well, it's not apples to apples, but I think what we're moving to is, or talking about, is actually a sort of a more metropolitan plan, because let's face it, if you go to New York or Boston or New Orleans or, any of the larger cities, all your bodegas are on the corner in the middle of the neighborhood, and so are the coffee shops and, everything
Right.
else. If you're in New York, walk either direction in 2 blocks and you're going to find a bagel. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not opposed to it in that regard. On the other hand, I don't know that I'd want a roller rink next door to me. I'd be more worried about the disco music than the parking problem, but
You be out there with your leisure suit.
I think with some review by staff and the planning commission, we'd probably be on firm ground.
I just don't want to say no. I think that we need to be able to at least have somebody come in with a legitimate plan, and then let staff and the appropriate committee take a look at it to say yes or no.
Or maybe that's special exceptions.
Well, that's what we're talking about with the special exception, right?
Yes, sir, that special exception would create that layer of review.
Which is solid no.
Sort of like the HVAC argument.
That's right.
Mr. Bettis, you've got a motion on the floor.
Would you like me to take that back?
We will, if we proceed with an amended motion to allow as a special exception, I'll either need you to take it back or to change your motion, one or the other, sir.
I will take it back and allow Jay to make his motion as he likes it. How about that?
Well, then I make the motion that we accept the ordinance and add for these businesses to be allowed by special exception in C2.
Mr. Merriman, are we on firm ground?
Yes, sir. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Bettis withdrew his motion. You have subsequently submitted a secondary motion, which would make that be special exception C2. Yes, sir, I think you are.
We'll need a second of Mr. Arrowood's motion, please.
Second.
Floor is now open for discussion. More discussion? Other discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Second and final reading of ordinance number 33-2021. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Adela Garcia located at 150 Delagrave Street from RM1 residential multifamily to R5. Any new or additional information in regards to ordinance number 33-2021? Mr. McMahon?
No, sir, there's no new information.
Comes to us from staff. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
And a second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, the second and final reading of ordinance number 35-2021 is before us this evening. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by True North Properties LLC and Cube Properties Solutions LLC located at 101 Elmer Street from RM1 to R5. Any new or additional information in regards to ordinance number 35-2021? Mr. McMahon?
No, sir, no information.
Comes as approved on first reading, no change from staff or otherwise. Entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Second and final reading of ordinance number 36-2021. Ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Kashira and Pramorda Valdebahini located at 101 Austin Street from RM1 to RM2. Any new or additional information in that regard, Mr. McMahon?
No, sir.
Comes to us for second reading. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, let's move to items of new business. First of which is, this evening is the first reading of ordinance number 38-2021. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of properties owned by Cold Brew Holding LLC located at 108 East Avenue and East Avenue by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of DRD for said properties. Mr. McMahon.
Yes, sir, thank you. Ordinance 38 and 39 are related. Here's an aerial view of the property. What the applicant is requesting is to do a townhome community on these two parcels and the parcel to the west, kind of that lower triangle. Here's the current zoning of the area. The future land use map has this property adjacent to traditional neighborhood. Here's kind of the street view for the area. What the applicant is proposing is for up to 26 single-family attached units. There'll be a combination of 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath. They'll have a perimeter boundary of 12.5 feet. Internal setbacks will be 20 feet. You have your shake style, vinyl siding, stone veneer as kind of your materials. This here is the layout of the property. As you kind of see, these were the two parcels that are on 38. This is the parcel that is on 39. What they are proposing is to create the roads as a public road and have that road turned over to the city. That is all the information that I have, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
By show of hand, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Thank you. So noted, and if we have questions, I'll call on you. For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive ordinance number 38-2021.
So moved.
Sorry.
Floor is open for discussion.
Are these units to be sold or rented?
Yes, ma'am, my understanding is that these will be for sale units.
Will be for sale or no?
These are going to be for rent.
Would you, one of you care to come up and give us some information and an overview about the project, please?
Good evening. My name is Wes Bolin. I'm with Site Design at 225 Rocky Creek Road in Greenville, South Carolina. We're the civil engineer that developed the site plan for this project for Cold Brew Holdings. And just as Brandon had mentioned, it's 26 townhomes. Are currently showing 25 on our site plan, but we wrote the statement of intent for possible 26. We have public, the road will be designed as a public road to be turned over to the city of Greer. We're going to be running the sanitary sewer and new water main extension through the property. Besides the single-family attached homes, we are looking at adding a couple of amenity areas to it, including a dog park and a outdoor gaming area. That is in the lower, it's in the U-shaped portion of at the end of the drives. And currently it's on East Avenue, and it's in Spartanburg County, and we want to annex into the city of Greer to be cohesive with the surrounding areas.
Other questions in that regard? Thank you, sir, for the information.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. McMahon, we don't see many hammerheads. This is adequate for its purpose?
Yes, sir. The fire marshal has reviewed this. This has gone to our PAC meeting, so he has taken a review of this. This will also go through a full civil review once all this is completed.
Now, I see where they got one car garage, but most homes like that would be two cars, right?
So typically, the way the ordinance is written, DRD is a little bit different. The way the current ordinance is written for traditional single-family homes, you have to have 2 parking spaces. So a lot of times we count that single-car garage as one and the driveway as the second.
Oh, so it's gonna have a garage, it'll have a spot to park 2 cars, though?
Yes, sir.
Others? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council's second item of new business this evening is the first reading of ordinance number 39-2021, an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by PRHC LLC located on East Avenue by 100% petition. Oh, wait a minute. Excuse me.
Mr. Mayor, you're right. They're two separate parcels, 38 and 39 are.
Excuse me, okay. On East Avenue by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of DRD for said property. Mr. McMahon.
Yes, sir. This is the remaining parcel of the project. This is just that kind of corner piece that's adjacent to this alleyway. Again, the site plan and everything is the same. It's within a traditional neighborhood. Same proposed plan, just as attached. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Hate to be redundant, but as the owner of the property, represented the owner of the property with us this evening, thank you, so noted. Entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
And a second. Floor is open for discussion.
So the total with both of them is they gonna be 2.2 acres for both of them?
The total site itself will be 2.2 acres. With all 3 parcels, it'll be 2.2.
Is there gonna be, so most of the traffic that's gonna be entering onto East Avenue is gonna be coming off of, probably entering from Victor Avenue onto 11th and then taking a right on East? Is that how most people are gonna access this property?
Yes, sir. I think the majority of them would more than likely, as they come out, will go, is that 11? They'll come out here and then there's another access point. I don't believe any of them will turn to go to East Poinsett. I think they'll just head out to 101. The site was small enough, it didn't require a traffic study. It's only 26 units, so it didn't trigger that requirement.
It's just a funky intersection. I mean, intersection of East and 11th. It kind of comes in on a really sharp angle, and so it's very difficult to make that turn there. And it's going to put a lot more traffic on that road. So I wish there was something we could do with that intersection to improve it somewhat. Or I realize that the traffic can come from up north of there, but because of all the the road closures and the way traffic's been you'd have to kind of weave around amongst the neighborhood in order to get down to it. So that's the only thing that's a little unusual about the site.
Yes, sir.
And most of the streets in the Mill Village are rather narrow itself, not wide as far as traffic would be concerned.
Well, if you just kind of look at that, it comes in on a hard angle. I mean, it's very difficult to make that turn right there on the east. I've made that turn several times. And that's the only thing. It's just going to put a lot more traffic right there trying to make that turn, and then folks trying to, I can see that being a little frustrating spot in the mornings and afternoons.
Others? Comments? Questions? Discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis, Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council has moved to the first reading of ordinance number 40-2021. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by Monica D. Covington and Dolly Daly Bradley, located at 500 Snow Road, by 100% petition, and to establish a zoning classification of DRD for said property. Mr. McMahon.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Ordinance 40 and 41 are also related. Trying not to confuse y'all tonight by having to do that. This is an aerial view of the property. This is along Snow Road. That subdivision to the west is Franklin Point. Current zoning for the area is R12 with a little C3 kind of down towards the bottom there. This property does lie adjacent to a traditional neighborhood and also near a suburban neighborhood with our future land use map. Here's the current street view. What they're proposing, the total site with 40 and 41 is 18.35 acres. They're proposing up to 160 single-family attached units. Minimum square footage will be 1,000 square feet, but they will average about 1,400 over the entire development. Setbacks are our traditional setbacks, 25 feet along the exterior of the property and 20 on the internal. Traditional materials that we usually see in our DRDs. Here's a site plan showing the layout of the property. So their access point will be on Snow Road. One thing I would like to make note of is on Exhibit C, we are proposing to take the remainder of Snow Road. Right now, currently along Franklin Point, Brayburn Orchard on Snow Road, we go to center line. So we felt it's best to go ahead. We have this option now to go ahead and clean that up. So what we're hoping to do is we will take the full road along the new properties and take the remainder of the road along city property. And that's all the information that I have, but I'll be happy to answer any questions.
By show of hand, is the owner of the property a representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Thank you. So noted. For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive ordinance number 40-2021.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Mr. McMahon, this looks familiar in some regard. It looks like a lot of trailers adjacent to this piece of property. When we encroach on that situation, are there screening issues with that?
So residential does not have to screen against commercial. That property is in the county, so there wouldn't be a requirement. I would more than likely feel the developer would want to screen against that, and I would think they would. So they will have that 25-foot buffer that goes around the property that typically they don't disturb. So if there's trees and vegetation in there, that typically stays.
Would any of y'all like to address council about this project?
Thanks, council members. My name is Alex Bonda with Four Star Group, and Danny Esteban with Stanton. 150 Executive Center Drive, Suite 208, Greenville, South Carolina. Proposing approximately 160 townhomes for this development here, with a approximately 1.5 acre amenity center, including a cabana and pool, with some storm detention at the back of the site there to the southwest. These would be for sale townhomes, ranging, the minimum size would be 20-foot wide townhomes.
Say that one time.
20-foot wide townhomes.
I guess from this is Dan Esteban with Stantec Consulting Services. I'm the civil engineer. So from a utility standpoint, we'd be tying into Greer CPW in the rear of the property, and there's water service along Snow Road as well. And these roads will be public roads.
I think just to clarify, as far as what you're seeing on the screen, those blocks there represent the entire lot that the townhome would rest on, and that's not just the building butting up right against the property line. Typically with the developments that we work on, we respect the property line, the perimeter, and would buffer that.
What's gonna be the price range of your townhomes?
It's market driven, and we haven't selected a builder currently. We're just so early on in the process, but in this market, it's been about a 10% increase year over year. So we don't really have a number on that just yet, but it's whatever the market.
Approximately how far up from Highway 101 is the site?
It's about 750 feet from 101 over to the entrance.
750
About
feet?
750 feet, 800 feet.
The corner parcel, what is that, the corner piece that's, we've drawn in something, what is that going to be? Is that your amenity?
That's the amenity area. Yeah, just bubbled out. We don't have a plan for that yet.
Okay.
We've at least allocated that's where the amenity area will be.
Is there a structure on that corner there?
I think there's a house there.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's a residence on each parcel as part of this rezoning and annexation.
I'm sorry, what did you say about the roads?
The public roads.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Others? Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
40-2021. I have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, first reading of ordinance number 41-2021. This is an ordinance reviving the annexation of property owned by Scott and Monica Covington located at 510 Snow Road by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of DRD for said property. Mr. McMahon, any new or additional information in that regard?
Yes, sir. This is that corner piece where they're kind of showing their amenity center. Everything else is pretty much the same for this ordinance as 40. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Again, at the risk of being redundant, by show of hand, of the owner of the properties or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? So noted. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to receive first reading of ordinance number 41-2021.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion. Questions?
So these two combined will be a total of 160 units.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm glad that, these are back to back, because that little amenity area on the map, there was two of those, and I was trying to figure out how that was contiguous, and now it makes more sense now, so. Thank you.
Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council in executive, thank you, Mr. Manahan. In executive session, we have 3 matters to consider this evening. I'll entertain a motion that we enter into executive session. We need a motion.
Yeah, you want to make a motion?
Oh, no, go
Okay. Mr. Mayor,
ahead.
I'd
I've got to go short.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss 2 contractual matters, one pertaining to Greer Golf and the other to deal with an annexation fee as allowed by state statute, section 30-470A2, and then also a personnel matter pertaining to public services, and that'll be state statute, section 30-470A1.
Ms. Albert, you can second now. I have a motion and a second to go into executive session. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we are in executive session. Council, in executive session, we've considered 3 matters, 2 contractual matters and a personnel matter. We've taken no action in regards to any of those items. Do I hear a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Motion and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. It's been adjourned.